Information is a powerful tool, capable of shaping perceptions and influencing decisions. Amid the flood of news and conflicting narratives, some names emerge as central figures in the dissemination of alternative versions of reality. Among them, Alex Jones built a media empire, sustained by conspiracy theories that challenge the mainstream discourse. His influence has gone beyond the niche of alternative media and reached the highest political spheres, becoming a cultural phenomenon and a frequent target of controversies and polemics. But what is the true impact of his theories on society? To what extent has his narrative shaped public discourse and influenced real events? Welcome to another night where mysteries never sleep. I am Midnight, and this is 7 Nights. Before we begin, I'd like to ask for your help. Like the video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It's just one click, but it makes a huge difference in getting YouTube to show the videos to more people and allowing me to continue bringing this content to you. I'm counting on you. Let's get to the video. Few figures in American media evoke as much passion and controversy as Alex Jones. To some, he is a fearless investigator, willing to expose the truths that mainstream media refuses to touch. To others, he is merely a creator of sensationalist narratives that fuel fear and misinformation. But who really is Alex Jones? And how did he build an empire based on theories that challenge the official reality? The story begins in the 1990s in Texas, where a young radio host started gaining attention for his aggressive style and his accusations against the government. At the time, the United States was marked by tragic events, such as the Waco siege, where dozens of people died after a confrontation with the FBI. For most, it was a tragedy caused by a fanatic religious leader. For Jones, it was a government massacre, and this perspective sparked something in his audience. After all, how far was the government willing to go to maintain control? His show quickly stood out. While mainstream media handled certain topics cautiously, Jones had no filters. He denounced secret societies, clandestine projects, and an alleged globalist plan to weaken the population. Listeners began to see him as one of the few voices speaking without fear. And in 1999, he did something that changed everything. He infiltrated Bohemian Grove. Bohemian Grove is an exclusive retreat where major political leaders and businessmen gather every year. Jones and his team managed to sneak in and capture disturbing footage. A strange ceremony, with powerful figures gathered before a massive owl statue, performing a symbolic ritual. The video went viral. Was it just an innocent tradition, or proof that the world's elite participates in occult rituals? From that moment on, Jones became more than just a radio host. He was now a symbol of resistance against what he called the New World Order. But the real turning point came in 2001, when the 9/11 attacks changed the course of history. While the world watched in shock as the Twin Towers collapsed, Jones already had a different narrative. According to him, it wasn't a simple terrorist attack. It was an inside job, planned to justify wars and authoritarian policies. The impact was enormous. Thousands of people began questioning the official version. Videos, analyses, and supposed leaked documents started circulating. Was the government hiding the truth? Had it all been a plan to usher in a new era of surveillance and control? The theory gained traction, and Jones became one of the most influential faces in alternative media. But he didn't stop there. With the rise of the internet, Jones created Infowars, a platform where he could spread his theories without relying on traditional broadcasters. And it worked. His website attracted millions of visitors, his videos went viral, and his audience grew exponentially. He began covering everything: vaccines, media manipulation, secret government experiments, and an alleged global depopulation plan. Was it an exaggeration, or was there something deeper behind these allegations? Success, however, brought enemies. Mainstream media began labeling him as a dangerous conspiracy theorist. Platforms started restricting his reach. But Jones used this to his advantage. For him, this censorship was proof that his accusations were bothering the right people. When Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter banned him, his followers didn't see it as a punishment for spreading misinformation, but as an attempt to silence the truth. And that's how he became even more influential. In the following years, Jones became directly involved in politics, supporting figures like Donald Trump. During the 2016 election, his influence became evident. Trump himself even mentioned Infowars, showing that the theories propagated there were reaching the halls of power. But this closeness also made him a target for even more scrutiny. The tide began to turn when he was sued for his claims about the Sandy Hook massacre. Jones had suggested that the whole event was staged, part of a plan to tighten gun control laws. The victims' families took him to court, and he was ordered to pay millions in damages. But did this mean the end of his influence? Whether as a rebel against the system or as a master of manipulation, Alex Jones redefined the way conspiracy theories are spread. Did his allegations go too far, or was he punished for questioning the official narrative? What is real, and what is merely a strategy to maintain control over information? If Alex Jones was a controversial figure on the radio, it was on the internet that he built his empire. And this empire had a name: Infowars. More than just an alternative news website, Infowars became a true digital bunker where explosive theories were launched daily. And as his audience grew, so did the concern of major media corporations. After all, was Jones merely exposing hidden truths, or was he manipulating fear to gain power? The portal was created in the early 2000s, at the peak of the internet boom. While newspapers and TV networks still dominated the narrative, Infowars emerged as a radical counterpoint. The premise was simple: reveal what mainstream media was hiding. And for that, Jones spared no effort. He produced documentaries, broadcasted live investigations, and published articles that, according to him, exposed secrets that they didn't want the public to know. But who were they? For Jones, the answer was clear: a globalist elite made up of politicians, billionaires, and corporate moguls. He believed this elite worked in secrecy to consolidate its dominance over the world, using crises and conflicts to justify increasing control over society. And this narrative found an eager audience looking for answers that conventional news outlets didn't provide. Infowars grew rapidly. Within a short time, it was racking up millions of monthly visits, directly competing with major news portals. But there was something even more intriguing behind its success. Unlike traditional media, Jones did not rely on advertising from big brands. His business model was different. He sold products. From dietary supplements to survival gear, everything was marketed with a narrative aligned with his theories. If Jones claimed the government was contaminating water to weaken the population, he sold anti-contamination filters. If he warned of the possibility of societal collapse, he offered dehydrated food stockpiles and survival kits. Every theory came with a solution. But did this mean his allegations were just a business strategy, or was there something real behind his claims? The model worked so well that it turned Infowars into a money-making machine. At its peak, it was estimated that Jones was making over $50 million per year. With that money, he expanded his operations, setting up a high-tech studio and hiring reporters to cover events worldwide. He wanted Infowars to be seen not just as a conspiracy theory website, but as a legitimate alternative to the mainstream press. But Infowars' rise made waves. Large media corporations began pressuring platforms like Facebook and YouTube to review their policies on disinformation. And then the attacks began. Infowars videos were demonetized, content was removed, and Jones himself became the target of campaigns to ban him from the internet. In 2018, the pressure reached its peak. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and other tech giants decided to remove Infowars from their platforms, claiming that the site promoted hate speech and fake news. For Jones' critics, this was a victory against disinformation. For his followers, it was definitive proof that he had been right all along. If they were trying to silence him, it was because he was revealing something too dangerous to be allowed. But the blow wasn't enough to take Infowars down. Jones found ways to keep his audience engaged, using his own website and alternative platforms. He claimed he was the victim of a coordinated persecution, and that digital censorship was just the beginning of something much bigger. He warned that soon, anyone who questioned the official narrative would be banned, blocked, and silenced. And the question remained: was he exaggerating, or were we truly entering an era of absolute censorship? Despite the bans, Infowars continues to exist. And even with his credibility constantly questioned, one thing is undeniable: Alex Jones created an alternative media empire like few have ever managed to do. But what is the true impact of all this? Did his theories help expose hidden truths, or did they merely fuel a cycle of paranoia and misinformation? Now let's dive into the heart of the Alex Jones phenomenon, the theories he spread across the world. Many of them were ignored, others were ridiculed, but some, Some had real consequences and changed the course of historical events. Were they just the delusions of an inflammatory radio host, or was there truth behind these conspiracies? Shortly after founding Infowars, Jones began to explore a pattern in his accusations. According to him, major tragedies, terrorist attacks, and global crises were not spontaneous events. To him, everything followed a carefully planned script executed by hidden forces controlling governments, banks, and corporations. And this belief led to some of the most impactful conspiracy theories ever spread on the internet. One of his first major claims was that the 9/11 attacks were an inside job. Jones asserted that the collapse of the Twin Towers could not have happened solely from the impact of the planes, and that there were clear signs of controlled demolition. Videos of secondary explosions, eyewitness testimonies, and anomalies in the wreckage were presented as evidence. He argued that the attacks were a pretext to justify the expansion of government surveillance and wars in the Middle East. This theory became one of the most popular in modern history, influencing thousands of people to question the official version. But Jones didn't stop there. Another of his most impactful claims involved one of the most controversial topics of recent times. Tap water was being deliberately contaminated to manipulate the population. According to him, substances like fluoride were not just dental health additives, but a form of social control, used to reduce people's cognitive abilities and keep them submissive. This theory sparked a resistance movement against fluoride use in the US and fueled growing paranoia about government control through common products. And then came Sandy Hook. This was the moment when Jones' theories stopped being just an internet phenomenon and directly affected real people's lives. The massacre, which occurred in 2012, left 26 people dead, most of them children. But Jones made highly controversial claims about the case, suggesting that there were inconsistencies in the official narrative. However, these statements were widely debunked, and the victims' families took him to court in one of the most impactful lawsuits in alternative media history. The consequences were severe. Several parents filed lawsuits against Jones, claiming that his lies ruined their lives. And for the first time, he had to face the legal consequences of his words. A court ordered him to pay over $1 billion in damages. But did that stop him? If you think Alex Jones backed down, you're mistaken. Even after the ruling, he maintained that he was the target of an orchestrated attempt to destroy him. And for his followers, this persecution was just more proof that the system does not tolerate those who challenge its narrative. But the real question is, to what extent are these theories truly a threat to the establishment, or are they just fuel for a cycle of paranoia and misinformation? Infowars continued producing content, now focusing on new conspiracies. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Jones spread the theory that vaccines were part of a global depopulation plan. He claimed that pharmaceutical companies and governments were creating a mass biological control system, using vaccination as a tool to manipulate and reduce the population. This theory became extremely popular in conspiracy communities and fueled distrust in science and health institutions. And then came what many consider the peak of his political influence, the 2020 US presidential election. Jones was one of the main propagators of the theory that the election was rigged, that Donald Trump had been robbed through massive voter fraud. He used Infowars to rally his followers to resist, helping to fuel the chaos that led to the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot. After this event, Alex Jones came under even greater scrutiny. The FBI launched investigations, Congress members called for his arrest, and social media platforms tightened their policies against misinformation. But if the goal was to silence him, the effect was the opposite. The persecution turned him into a martyr for his base of supporters, who became even more convinced that he was one of the last independent voices in a world controlled by manipulation and censorship. So the inevitable question arises, to what extent did Alex Jones' theories truly shape society? Did they help reveal hidden truths, or did they simply spread chaos? Is he a visionary who saw what no one else did, or a master manipulator who exploited human fear? The answer might be closer than we think. Nothing happens by chance. And when it comes to power, influence, and media, everything has a purpose. Alex Jones didn't just spread conspiracy theories. He helped shape the political landscape of the United States in ways that few imagined possible. But to what extent did his narratives influence elections, leaders, and even the fate of a nation? Jones' connection with politics began early, but it was during the 2016 presidential campaign that his impact was truly felt. He saw in Donald Trump a figure different from traditional politicians. While the mainstream media mocked Trump's candidacy, Jones saw something more. Someone who, according to his analysis, challenged the globalist agenda he had been denouncing for years. Was this just a coincidence, or was there a deeper strategy behind this alliance? During the campaign, Trump not only refused to distance himself from Alex Jones, but also gave him a platform. In a live interview on Infowars, Trump thanked Jones and his team for their work, stating that their audience was amazing. This was unprecedented. A presidential candidate publicly acknowledging one of the country's most notorious conspiracy theorists. For Jones and his followers, this was confirmation that their accusations were finally being taken seriously. The partnership paid off. For months, Jones used his platform to boost Trump's candidacy, attacking the mainstream media, targeting political opponents, and spreading the theory that there was a conspiracy to prevent his victory. He claimed that the elections could be rigged, and that people needed to be prepared to resist. What seemed like an exaggeration at the time would become reality years later. Trump's victory was seen by Jones as a triumph against the elites who, according to him, were trying to control the world. But what happened in the following years only increased the influence of conspiracy theories within American politics. Over time, Jones and other alternative media figures began claiming that Trump was surrounded by internal enemies, that there were betrayals within his own government, and that hidden forces had not yet given up on taking him down. This kept his base constantly on edge, expecting a coup at any moment. Then came 2020, the presidential election that pitted Trump against Joe Biden, and it became an ideological battlefield. Once again, Jones warned that something was wrong. He claimed that the COVID-19 pandemic was being used as an excuse to rig the electoral system, that ballots were being manipulated, and that big tech companies were censoring information that could harm Biden. The election fraud theory began to spread, and when the results were announced, Jones was one of the first to claim that everything had been a planned scheme. The consequences were explosive. On January 6, 2021, thousands of Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol in one of the most chaotic moments in recent political history. And Alex Jones was there. Footage shows him in the middle of the crowd, giving speeches and encouraging resistance against what he called a stolen election. To many, he was one of the key figures responsible for the tension that led to the attack. But was he truly the orchestrator of the events, or was he simply echoing what millions of Americans already felt? After the Capitol riot, Jones became a target of FBI investigations. His involvement was thoroughly analyzed, and he was cited in multiple hearings on the radicalization of the far right in the United States. Digital platforms intensified their censorship against him, and his company faced a wave of lawsuits and boycotts. But something unexpected happened. Even after all this, his influence did not disappear. Jones continued broadcasting, his followers remained loyal, and Infowars found ways to bypass restrictions. More than that, his narratives were absorbed by new political movements. Politicians who once avoided conspiracy theories began using them as strategic tools, playing on public fear and distrust to strengthen their campaigns. The big question that remains is, did Alex Jones truly manipulate the American political landscape, or did he simply expose a truth that already existed but no one dared to reveal? Freedom of speech has always been a sacred principle in the United States. But what happens when that freedom clashes with powerful interests? Alex Jones built an empire on the idea that elites want to silence anyone who questions the official narrative. And then in 2018, the unthinkable happened. He was banned from the major social media platforms. Coincidence? Or was this proof that he had been right all along? The decision came in a coordinated manner. Within a short period, Facebook, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify removed Alex Jones and Infowars content from their platforms. The justification was that he had violated guidelines by spreading disinformation and hate speech. But to his followers, this wasn't just content moderation. It was a deliberate operation to eliminate an inconvenient voice. After all, why did all these companies act at the same time? Jones had faced restrictions before, but this time was different. His YouTube channel had over 2.4 million subscribers. His live broadcasts reached millions of viewers. And overnight, he was erased from the world's biggest digital stage. For Jones, the ban was evidence that big platforms were tightening their grip on alternative media. His critics, however, argued that it was a necessary measure to contain disinformation. But did this argument hold up? The truth is that big tech companies had been under pressure for years to curb the spread of conspiracy theories. After the Sandy Hook controversy and the election scandals, lawmakers and activists began demanding stricter action against Infowars. Their argument was clear. Alex Jones wasn't just a controversial commentator. He was a dangerous propagator of lies that put lives at risk. His supporters, however, saw things differently. To them, Jones was the first major test of a new model of digital censorship. Today it was Alex Jones. Tomorrow, it could be anyone. Who decides what can or cannot be said? Who defines what is truth and what is misinformation? After being deplatformed, Jones moved his operation to his own website. Infowars continued to function, but with difficulties. Without the power of YouTube and social media, his audience declined. Additionally, online payment companies began blocking transactions to his store, affecting his primary source of income. But Jones did not back down. He doubled down on his claim that it was all part of a bigger plan to silence voices that challenged the system. But something even more serious loomed over him: lawsuits. In 2022, Jones was ordered to pay over $1 billion to the families of the Sandy Hook victims. It was the largest penalty ever imposed on an alternative media figure in U.S. history. The courts argued that his false claims had caused irreparable damage to the families. But to his followers, this was a warning: challenge the official narrative, and you will be financially destroyed. The fall of Alex Jones sparked a global debate. On one side, those who believed that he had crossed all limits and needed to be stopped. On the other, those who saw his deplatforming as proof that the era of total censorship had begun. But if Jones was truly silenced, why does his name still resonate so strongly? Did his absence only reinforce the belief that there is a forbidden truth that cannot be told? Deaths happen every day. Some are investigated, solved, and soon forgotten. Others leave too many questions unanswered. Jamie White, a journalist associated with Infowars, was murdered in March 2025. Officially, it was a random crime. But was it really? Or are we looking at yet another case of someone who knew too much? The news spread quickly. Jamie White was found dead in a parking lot in Austin, Texas. According to authorities, he had been the victim of an attempted robbery, resisted, and was shot. A random crime, with no greater connections. But something about this case didn't seem to add up. White worked as an investigative journalist in alternative media, covering topics that sparked heated debates. His reports often questioned mainstream narratives and raised concerns about the impact of digital censorship. But was it just a coincidence that someone so involved in sensitive issues fell victim to a violent crime? What stands out is the context of his death. A few weeks before, White had been investigating alleged illegal surveillance schemes conducted by major tech corporations. He claimed that there was a coordinated effort to monitor dissident journalists, collect private data, and identify those who could pose a threat to the dominant narrative. Could he have become a target because of this investigation? Alex Jones' reaction was immediate. During a broadcast, Jones called White's death a murder orchestrated by the system. He accused Austin District Attorney Jose Garza, known for receiving support from billionaire-funded progressive organizations, of creating an environment where criminals act without fear, making it easier to target inconvenient figures. To Jones, White was not the victim of a random crime, but an execution disguised as a robbery. But there was another curious detail. The killer has not yet been identified. Witnesses reported seeing two individuals fleeing the scene, but so far, there are no concrete leads. No arrests have been made. The case seems to be heading toward becoming just another forgotten file, like so many others where questions remained unanswered. White's death raises questions that have yet to be fully addressed. Was it just a common crime, or does his story deserve a closer look? Or is all of this just a tragic sequence of events with no greater connection? Coincidences exist. But sometimes, when the same patterns repeat, perhaps it's time to take a closer look. When a journalist from an alternative media outlet is assassinated, when communicators are erased from social networks, and when every major global event becomes the target of suspicion, what does this mean for the future of information? The world has changed, and there is no turning back. Digital censorship has become a new battlefield, where certain topics are swept off the internet before they even reach the public. Conspiracy theories that once spread freely now face algorithms designed to conceal them. But does this truly prevent their dissemination? Or does it merely push them into deeper, harder to track places? The case of Jamie White is not an isolated incident. Over the years, many independent journalists and whistleblowers have met mysterious fates. Some were discredited, others were silenced forever. But if these voices were only spreading lies, why such a great effort to make them disappear? Artificial intelligence and big tech algorithms grow more sophisticated by the day. Content is filtered, removed, or simply cast into digital oblivion. At the same time, however, new alternative platforms emerge, new communities form, and distrust only grows. Today, more than ever, any major event, whether political, economic, or sanitary, is instantly surrounded by theories regarding its true intentions. And the most dangerous aspect? The very concept of truth is collapsing. With deep fakes, information manipulation, and selective censorship, no one is certain of what is truly happening anymore. Narratives multiply, and amid this chaos, conspiracy theories cease to be a marginal phenomenon and become an essential part of how society perceives the world. If today we question every news story, every tragedy, and every government decision, imagine what the future will be like. Truth, once fragmented, may never be restored. We are entering an era where anything can be real, and at the same time, nothing can be proven. What lies ahead? Perhaps we are witnessing the birth of a new form of information control. Or maybe we are finally beginning to see what has always been hidden. The events surrounding Alex Jones and his theories are not just isolated stories. They reflect a world where truth has become a weapon and information a battlefield. What was once considered absurd has often proven real. What once seemed like a conspiracy, in some cases, turned out to be a carefully executed plan. But where does the search for truth end? And where does the game of manipulation begin? The downfall of Alex Jones, the blocking of Infowars, the billion-dollar lawsuits, digital censorship, and even the death of Jamie White raise a disturbing question. Are we witnessing the collapse of conspiracy theories or their ultimate rise? Are the voices challenging the system being silenced because they spread misinformation or because they got too close to the truth? And what if Jones was always right about one thing, that we live in a world where some questions must never be asked? This story is just one piece, and one day, you may see the whole puzzle. If this made you think, subscribe, like the video, and help the channel grow. Don't forget to share. After all, more voices mean more discoveries.